Hey, Huckster here. I'm going to read some excerpts from Ray Smith. There's no greater evil taught in the church today than the doctrine of eternal torment. This doctrine has no validity in the scriptures. Even though this doctrine has its origins in paganism, most pagan and heathen nations have long since forsaken this hideous teaching. There's nothing, absolutely nothing, that can be conceived by the mind of man that is more deplorable, detestable, and disgusting than the thought of being physically, mentally, and spiritually tortured for all eternity. The thought is inconceivable. The thought of eternal torture is far beyond all known evil, immoral, corrupt, damnable, deprived, heinous, hideous, loathsome, nefarious, obscene, repugnant, reprobate, vile, and wicked sins of all the universe combined. Just aren't enough adjectives to describe this doctrine. It can't be compared to anything. The very thought, the teaching, the doctrine of eternal torment is the greatest evil that can ever be conceived. Eternity has no end. When totally reprobate men want to commit the ultimate evil, they torture people. Torture is outlawed in international warfare. Even the vilest leaders in the world agree in principle that torture should be a forbidden practice. All humans who torture others are considered the lowest forms of humanity. Saddam Hussein's two sons were inventors of new forms of human torture, yet their joy of putting people through tree shredders was child's play compared to the evils envisioned by the great theologians of Christendom. Theologians picture men, women, and children being engulfed in real fire while being forced to drink molten hot lead. As for me, I would take the tree shredder any day. At least it would be quick and it would come to an end. But the theologians' vision of torture by hell or fire in hell never ever ends, and they call it fair. They call it justice. I heard them with my own ears. John Hagee said on international television that hell is justice. James Kennedy says on international television that hell is fair. No, eternal torture is not justice, and no, it is not fair. It is insane, rank demonism. It is the depths of ungodliness. It's inordinately evil. It is the ultimate sin. It is the ultimate blasphemy. It's the blasphemy of all blasphemies. It's a doctrine that demeans and debases the very character of God Almighty and puts him below the vilest humans that have ever lived. And I would also add that it is one thing to reluctantly accept this doctrine because one has been deceived into believing that it's in the Bible, but it's quite another to meditate on this theme and come to embrace it into your heart, your mind, and your soul as something that is justice and fair. David said that he preferred the judgment of God over that of men. But if eternal torment is a true doctrine, a person would be a fool to prefer the judgment of God over that of man. The doctrine says that God is evil and unjust beyond any sane comprehension. The doctrine says that God, who saved the worst sinner that ever lived in a flash of light, cannot save most mediocre sinners in a trillion centuries. This doctrine says that God is a trillion times more evil than he is loving. The doctrine makes God out to be less caring and merciful when he tells us to love our enemies, but he doesn't follow his own teachings. Will the same God who says to us, love your enemies, be the one that will ultimately torture our friends, our neighbors, our loved ones? Is this the reward we get for loving our enemies? God will torture our loved ones? What kind of an incentive is that? What kind of double-talking, unscriptural nonsense is the doctrine of hell?